What you're about to see was captured by a surveillance camera on what appeared to be an ordinary evening. An 18-year-old high school graduate walked into a Target store with a simple plan: buy an anniversary gift and head home. She had no idea that someone had already begun watching her every move. Within minutes of leaving the store, she would disappear without a trace. What investigators uncovered in the days that followed shocked an entire community and ultimately changed the way police handle emergency cell phone records across the United States.
On Kelsey, the sticks and branches over her body gave the impression that it might have been a sacrifice.
This is the heartbreaking case of Kelsey Smith. On the evening of June 2nd, 2007, Kelsey Smith left her family's home in Overland Park, Kansas. Just days earlier, she had celebrated graduating from high school and was eagerly looking forward to starting college that fall. Friends described her as kind, outgoing, and full of energy. She loved animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. That night, her plans were simple. She was meeting her boyfriend later to celebrate their 6-month anniversary. But first, she wanted to stop at Target and buy him a special gift. At approximately 6:54 p.m., Kelsey parked her car outside the store and walked inside. She browsed through the aisles without rushing, eventually finding the perfect present. Before checking out, she called her mother to say she had finished shopping and would be home soon. It was a short, cheerful conversation. Neither of them realized it would be the last time they would ever speak. After paying for the gift, Kelsey walked back through the parking lot toward her car. To anyone watching, everything appeared completely normal. But investigators would later discover that another customer had been quietly following her throughout the store, carefully observing her movements and waiting for the right opportunity. The security cameras captured both of them. At the time, no one noticed. Within moments of Kelsey getting into her vehicle, she drove away. She never made it home. As the evening grew later, her family became increasingly worried. Kelsey was responsible and always let someone know if she was running late. Calls to her phone went unanswered, and every minute that passed only deepened their fear. They had no idea they were about to become part of one of the most heartbreaking criminal investigations in Kansas history. The calls kept coming. Her parents dialed Kelsey's phone again and again, hoping to hear her voice or at least see her answer. Instead, every call went straight to voicemail. At first, they tried to stay calm. Maybe her phone battery had died. Maybe she had stopped to see a friend. Maybe traffic had delayed her. But as the minutes passed, those explanations became harder to believe.
When she wasn't responding, Greg started calling different police agencies and hospitals and so forth.
Kelsey wasn't the type of person to disappear without telling anyone. She always checked in with her family, especially if she knew someone was waiting for her. Concern quickly turned into panic. Her father began calling local hospitals, asking if anyone matching his daughter's description had been admitted. After a traffic accident, every answer was the same. No one had seen her. Unable to wait any longer, the family drove to the Target where Kelsey had last been seen. The parking spaces where she had parked earlier were now empty. There was no sign of her. They searched nearby streets and neighboring businesses, hoping to spot her car. Then, just across the road, they found it. Kelsey's vehicle sat alone in another shopping center's parking lot. The discovery raised more questions than answers. If her car was here, where was Kelsey? Police quickly secured the area and began examining the vehicle. Inside, they found her purse. The anniversary gift she had purchased was still there, untouched. Nothing suggested she had planned to leave voluntarily. To investigators, it was becoming clear that this was no ordinary missing person case. Someone had interrupted Kelsey's journey home, and whoever that person was had disappeared without leaving behind an obvious trail, with almost no physical evidence to follow. Detectives turned to the one witness they hoped had seen everything: the surveillance cameras. Detectives immediately requested every available surveillance recording from the Target store and nearby businesses. Hour after hour, investigators watched the footage, hoping a single detail would reveal what had happened after Kelsey left the store. At first, the recordings seemed disappointingly ordinary. Kelsey entered the store alone. She calmly walked through several aisles, comparing different items before choosing a gift. She smiled politely at the cashier, completed her purchase, and walked back toward the exit. Nothing appeared unusual. If someone had been watching her, they were doing an excellent job of blending into the crowd. The detectives replayed the footage repeatedly, slowing it down frame by frame. Then one investigator noticed something that everyone else had overlooked. The same man appeared in multiple camera angles. He wasn't shopping with anyone. He wasn't carrying many items. Instead, he seemed to be adjusting his path whenever Kelsey changed direction, always remaining close enough to keep her in sight without drawing attention. The more they watched, the more unsettling the pattern became. This wasn't a coincidence. It looked as though he had selected Kelsey long before she reached the checkout. When she headed toward the front doors, the man also moved toward the exit. Seconds later, both of them disappeared from the cameras inside the building. Investigators shifted their attention to the parking lot footage. The video quality wasn't perfect, but it revealed enough to make their hearts sink. Kelsey reached her vehicle. For a brief moment, everything looked normal. Then, just before she drove away, a figure moved rapidly into the blind spot beside her car. It happened so quickly that it was almost impossible to notice during normal playback. The detectives froze. The evidence strongly suggested that Kelsey had not left that parking lot alone. The case was no longer just about finding a missing teenager. It had become a race against time to identify the man who had silently followed her through the store and disappeared with her into the night. Investigators now had one crucial lead: a man who appeared to have been paying unusual attention to Kelsey inside the store. The next challenge was figuring out who he was. Officers carefully isolated every frame in which the man appeared. Although the surveillance footage was grainy, it revealed enough to build a basic description. He was a white male, dressed casually, and seemed remarkably calm as he moved through the store. What stood out wasn't his appearance. It was his behavior. He never seemed interested in shopping. Instead, his movements appeared to revolve around Kelsey. Whenever she changed aisles, he wasn't far behind. When she stopped, he slowed down. When she headed toward the checkout, he quietly positioned himself closer to the exit. To experienced investigators, it looked less like coincidence and more like someone waiting for the perfect opportunity. The images were released to the public, and within hours the police department was flooded with phone calls. Some callers believed they recognized the man. Others reported similar encounters with someone matching his description. Every tip had to be investigated, but detectives knew time was running out. Meanwhile, forensic specialists continued examining Kelsey's abandoned car. They searched every surface for fingerprints, DNA, fibers, and anything that could identify the person who had entered the vehicle. Each tiny piece of evidence was carefully collected and sent to the crime lab. As investigators waited for the results, another important breakthrough arrived. Records from nearby security cameras began revealing the route Kelsey's vehicle had taken after leaving the Target parking lot. For the first time, detectives could begin reconstructing the kidnapper's movements. With every new camera they reviewed, the picture became clearer. Whoever had taken Kelsey wasn't acting impulsively. The abduction appeared organized, deliberate, and frighteningly controlled. Now investigators had only one question left. Could they identify the man before it was too late? As investigators worked around the clock, the public response grew stronger with each passing hour. Volunteers covered neighborhoods, parks, and empty lots, hoping someone would spot a clue that police had missed. Hundreds of missing person flyers were handed out, and local news stations interrupted their regular programming to share Kelsey's story. Her smiling graduation photo quickly became recognizable across Kansas. Behind the scenes, detectives followed every lead, no matter how small. Most of them went nowhere. Some witnesses thought they had seen Kelsey after she disappeared, but every reported sighting turned out to be a false alarm. Then, a breakthrough finally arrived. Several people independently contacted investigators after seeing the surveillance images released to the public. They believed they recognized the man from the Target footage. The tips all pointed toward the same individual. Detectives immediately began digging into his background, comparing photographs, reviewing his known addresses, and examining the vehicle he was believed to drive. The more they investigated, the more concerned they became. There appeared to be enough similarities between the suspect and the man captured on surveillance that investigators decided they could no longer treat him as just another tip. He became the focus of the entire investigation. Even so, police still needed stronger evidence before making an arrest. Forensic specialists rushed to process fingerprints, DNA samples, and every piece of physical evidence collected from Kelsey's vehicle. At the same time, detectives prepared to question the suspect, hoping that even the smallest inconsistency in his story might expose what had happened. After Kelsey left the Target parking lot, the investigation was finally gaining momentum. But no one yet knew whether Kelsey was still alive or whether they were already searching for a crime scene. Instead of a missing person, detectives moved quickly. After gathering enough evidence, they located the suspect and brought him in for questioning. At first, he appeared calm. He answered basic questions without hesitation and insisted he had done nothing wrong. He admitted being at the Target that evening but claimed he had simply stopped there to shop before heading home. Investigators listened carefully. Then they placed several still images from the surveillance footage on the table. The suspect glanced at the photographs before looking away. Detectives continued asking questions, comparing each answer to the evidence they had already collected. Small inconsistencies began to appear. As the interview continued, forensic specialists delivered another crucial update. Physical evidence recovered from Kelsey's vehicle was consistent, with the suspect having been inside the car. That discovery dramatically changed the direction of the interview. Faced with mounting evidence, the suspect could no longer explain away his presence. Meanwhile, search teams focused on areas connected to electronic evidence gathered during the investigation. Officers, investigators, and volunteers combed through wooded terrain, determined to find any sign of Kelsey. Hours passed. Then, deep inside a remote area, searchers made a heartbreaking discovery. The search had come to a tragic end. News spread quickly through the command center. Officers who had spent days hoping to rescue Kelsey now stood in silence, knowing they would instead be delivering devastating news to her family. For everyone involved, the mission had changed. It was no longer a rescue. It had become a fight to secure justice for an 18-year-old whose future had been stolen in a matter of minutes. The investigation had finally reached its conclusion. After reviewing the evidence, hearing witness testimony, and examining the forensic findings, the court found the defendant responsible for Kelsey's kidnapping and murder. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, ensuring he would never again have the opportunity to harm another innocent person. But for Kelsey's family, no sentence could ever erase the pain of losing a daughter, whose life had only just begun. She was preparing for college, dreaming of becoming a veterinarian, and looking forward to the future. In just one evening, those dreams were stolen forever. Yet Kelsey's story did not end in that courtroom. Her case exposed how delays in accessing emergency cell phone location data could cost investigators precious time during missing person cases. In the years that followed, lawmakers worked to improve those emergency procedures, helping investigators respond more quickly when every minute matters. Today, Kelsey is remembered not for the man who took her life, but for the kindness, compassion, and joy she brought to everyone who knew her. Her story is also a reminder that danger does not always come with a warning. Sometimes it hides in ordinary places, blending into everyday life until it's too late. If there's one lesson to take from this heartbreaking case, it's this: stay aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, and never ignore the feeling that something isn't right. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing for more carefully researched true crime stories. And most importantly, let's remember Kelsey Smith, not for the tragedy that ended her life, but for the life she lived and the legacy she left behind. Rest in peace, Kelsey.